All right, it is time for that Wednesday Sovereign Tech Q&A, baby. Always here for you every Wednesday now. Hell, I'm here for you every Saturday, pretty much every Saturday. And, well, who knows what the future will hold. I got some new patrons this week, which is great. Ooh, what a weird week. In fact, I got to stop tapping this USB cord. Recording down here in the dungeon, of course. Not up in the studios. You usually get every Saturday. If you're a regular listener and you're a new Sovereign Tech patron on Patreon, part of the Double Secret Club. No. Never really came up with a totally official name for that. There was the Sovereign Tech Tortoise Club. We had a whole bunch of them. But just a strange week. That's I don't even know what I necessarily want to say on it. It's just it's been weird. Maybe it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's the week after Calendar, as listeners of Sovereign Tech are now aware of, or patrons of Sovereign Tech, I should say. And in fact, I just want to let you know, now I got a ton of questions about that. I think it was, what did I call it? The Hidden History of Christmas. It's a little special that I released last Friday on the Patreon feed. Got a ton of questions about that. Great questions. And it was actually really nice. I mean, because one could interpret that I was assaulting Christianity with that special or something. But, I got messages from people and questions from people that were, very, very just, I dare say, elevated questions, as in all right, yeah, let's talk about this. Let's break this down. How do you feel about this and all that? And I thought that was really great that we can actually have that conversation, that that I'm not going to scream and holler at you, whatever, that we can actually talk about these things regardless of beliefs. I really appreciate that. I love that kind of conversation. Anyway, so I probably won't be able to get to some of those questions this episode. Maybe I'll do a whole special episode where I cover or a lot of those questions in particular. Kind of a little religious history extra. But we'll see how that ends up. How that starts shaping up. But yeah, wow, just a weird week. I'm going to save a subject for later because it falls in line with the question I had. But even, honestly, so it's Wednesday. For me, Wednesday is actually kind of an exciting day. Not just because I get to do a Q&A episode, which I enjoy the hell out of doing these. Okay, but also because it's comic book day. It's when all the comic books, come out. And, when I was younger, it was the time that I could, that I would go to the comic book store and, oh man, and just spend way more money than I should. Today it's different in many ways. But yeah, it was even it was kind of a quiet week on the comic book front. There wasn't a whole lot of super exciting. Well, there was that new Star Trek. There's that Star Trek Boldly Go series that takes place after Star Trek Beyond. The fourth issue of that came out and that was great. But yeah, just kind of it just seemed like there weren't many issues. And I read a lot of shit too, but well, anyway, yeah, just seems like an odd week for a bunch of reasons, including the fact that the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy and I, we got a television, which I never thought I'd own another television. And now understand, this is a very, very basic television. In fact, I think I might have mentioned it. I might have mentioned it on Sovereign Tech this week. Or maybe it was, whenever, when I ordered it. But yeah, it's super basic. TCL, I think, is the name of the company. It's 720p. It's kind of a smart television, but very, very, very basic in what kind of smart apps that it allows for. Again, I couldn't find a fucking dumb television, really, that fit the bill. So yeah, just simple, LED, LCD. Actually has really, I'm impressed because it has a little bit of thickness to it, probably where, effectively a lot of the smart functions are sort of hidden within it. But taking advantage of that, good inch, maybe 2-inch depth on it, it has really, really good sized speakers on the bottom that sound pretty good. I was like, wow, this is great. Understand, so the last TV I owned was, 5-6 years ago. It was when I was in New York. I haven't owned a television since I was in New York. And so that would have been October 2011. And that was like a 65-inch rear projection, LED Samsung. And, I'll tell you, the speakers on that were pure shit. Like, they shouldn't have even bothered installing them. They were so bad. To even be able to hear them, you really, you had to be, like, right up on that screen. And what the hell are you doing getting right up on a 65-inch television? That's stupid. And I saw that as a direction, as everything was kind of getting thinner, blah, blah, blah. I saw it as a direction that I didn't like. But, that was rear projection. So that had a lot more than 2 inches going back. And they wouldn't fill that in with decent speakers, as to where, this really, honestly, inexpensive, little LED LCD television, 32-inch 720p, which, again, also the Samsung was a 1080p at the time. That was high end. It has these, fairly good speakers on it. And I was impressed. I was kind of shocked. So anyway, yeah, wow. So I guess that adds to the weirdness of the week. It's like, oh, suddenly there's a television in the house. Again, just a little thing. And it's just something to, there's just hook up, a little computer to, and, watch whatever's on it. And I'll tell you, well, I'm going to save the rest of that as far as like what has been watched on it. I'm going to save that for later on in the episode, because that'll fall in line with the question that I got. So anyway, let's start breaking into some of the questions here. And the first one is one I don't have a whole ton of commentary on, but I just want to address it because it was asked. And I do like to get to all questions if I can help it. This one's on Twitter. Did you hear about the Theranos scandal in Silicon Valley? If so, were you surprised at all about it? Okay, so yes, I have heard about the Theranos scandal. I've actually followed it pretty closely. But there are just a ton of other venues that have really, like, they've been so on top of it that I haven't seen it terribly, I haven't really felt the need to talk about it so much, because certain venues are doing such great work on it. And also there's a lot of speculation. So Theranos, to explain, Theranos is a company, founded by a woman, Elizabeth Holmes, young woman, frankly, but it's been around for about a decade. It's not like it's really only kind of gotten on people's radar since it started saying it was going to be releasing products. But as far as I know, it's been around for about a decade. So, and what they were trying to do is they were seemingly trying to democratize blood tests. Like, this is the basic gist. To where you could do with just like, a finger stick, and a little prick on the finger and almost no blood whatsoever. You could get, just some of the highest end blood tests that you normally would have to go to. I don't know, what are some of the companies that deal in blood tests in the US, like Quasar, or not Quasar, Quest, right? Quest is one of those diagnostic companies and all this. And so everybody would have, the ability to do blood tests right at home all the time, and they could get all this great information, blah, blah, blah. And just tons and tons of investors, big name investors involved, including a lot of politicians that maybe now have pie in their eye, but which they're politicians, what else is new? So what's really interesting is that now, part of their research and what they were developing, like all the technology and a lot of this, effectively the science that Theranos was implementing, none of it was peer reviewed. Now, not that there aren't issues with the peer review process, okay, but it's what's there. Okay. So I was, when I heard about it, like, not that I am, a biologist, not that I am that kind of scientist in any way, but I was a little skeptical. It's like, no, not to say that, like, say, Quest Diagnostics or some of these other companies certainly don't like to corner their market on blood tests, but this really seemed a little too good to be true. Much like how I felt with Magic Leap, okay, the VR or the AR/VR technology that Google was funding, which now we know was BS, and this is kind of the thing, is that a lot of these, well, when you hear about something that seems to be such a quantum leap, forward in technology, and when it's kept so mysterious and they're not willing to, at least really show things off, like kind of like, okay, so theoretically Magic Leap showed stuff off. Well, no, they didn't. It was all a production video done by like Weta Workshop, that made Lord of the Rings. I mean, it wasn't really legit. So, yeah, I really felt like that there was just too much behind this. And it seems like a lot of people got really sucked in. A whole lot of people got sucked into this. And there are guys, in Silicon Valley itself, thinking like Jason Calacanis, who does This Week in Startups, and who's, a relatively successful venture capitalist and all that, who he wants, it sounds like, I don't mean to put words in his mouth. He pretty much wants to throw the book at this woman. Like, it is so bad, and he's been covering it for a while. Just how scandal, how big of a scandal this really is with Theranos. So it seems proven that yes, it's over, because they shut everything down. I think just a couple months ago, just in October of 2016. Of course, now we're in 2017. Is this the first Q&A of 2017? I think so. Woo, all right. But yeah, it is. So anyway, yeah. So Theranos seems to have shut down, and it would just appear to be over. And they're just trying to clean it up as hush hush as possible, as far as I understand it. So no, this does not shock me. I think that this is something that is happening. That this is kind of it's part of this whole very classic tactic in business. The snake oil salesman. That's why it has that name. And it's happening in Silicon Valley, and I think it's happening across the board. I think Magic Leap was effectively snake oil. I think that, and we talked about just in, was it episode 206 of Sovereign Tech? This past week, we talked about, we were talking about Arcade City, and, a lot of this stuff, especially when you look at, what are the teams behind some of this shit? And also, what's what are they willing to show you outright? And just like the fact that Theranos wasn't willing to, allow for their, their tech to get peer reviewed and their implementations and everything. Yeah, that throws up red flags. That's, so it doesn't really surprise me. When the first time I heard about Theranos, and it was before it really started hitting the mainstream as far as, hey, is there something wrong going on here? When I was hearing about it, it's like, yeah, you're not showing us enough. For example, and granted, we're talking about biotech versus, full on, good old fashioned tech. But for example, with Microsoft, let's say HoloLens, all right, they have been so open of showing people the instant that HoloLens was in some kind of, usable form, to where, and they didn't talk about it until it was out there as some kind of usable form, right? But as soon as it came out, and even though it's gone through multiple iterations since the first time it was shown, and some people say it's for better or for worse, but, bottom line is that they've been out there, they've been very open with it, they've been getting out dev kits, just they're on top of it. And they didn't show you anything until they really had something to show you. As to where instead you have Magic Leap, which is building up on hype. Or you have, Theranos, which is also in many ways building up on hype with nothing really to show and not going through the channels that a lot of companies go through, to say that there's proof in the pudding of what they're developing. So, all the classic signals were there that this was bullshit. Am I surprised that, a bunch of aging politicians, were behind it or, were on board with it? And got duped? No, because they're politicians. They're muprons. So, not all politicians are muprons. There's some that have a little more intelligence than others. But, well, anyway, that's another subject. So, yeah, it didn't shock me about Theranos. But that's really all I've got to say about that. Now, so we can move on from there. Thank you for the question, though. So something that that people really, really dug was in last week's Q&A when I talked about how to go about stripping DRM. Well, I think you liked overall kind of the functional stuff that I talked about. Okay, I went over, what to do about two-factor authentication, what to do, and boy, that was fucking timely because I described the situation that happened. And like it happened just a couple days after I released that episode. I talked about the situation on episode 206 of Sovereign Tech, where, had a client that, shit hit the fan. But anyway, so people appreciate that, and that's great. So I actually have a couple of questions here that are both about kind of this really hands-on, practical, actionable stuff, that people might want to do. And one of them is a super important subject to me because do I get annoyed? The question has to do with stripping DRM out of books. And I think this is a huge subject, to discuss. And I was trying to find the exact question, but I couldn't seem to find it. But anyway, the person was basically asking that they want to DRM. They had commented about about the ripping DVDs and all that, and then they were curious. They said like back in 2013 they used to strip DRM from their Kindle books. And they're curious, kind of how to do it now. Now, this is important because, well, for a few reasons, and I've talked about these before on Sovereign Tech, on Prime episodes of Sovereign Tech. But the reason that this is a really good thing to do is that we know that Amazon, say particularly with Kindle books, okay, and we're gonna be talking about specifically Kindle books in this case, which also though covers comic books ever since Amazon bought Comixology about. Well, I guess it's almost 2 years ago now, or maybe a year and a half ago now. We know that Amazon will take books out of your library if there's a copyright issue of some kind, or if there's some kind of legal issue surrounding a book. They'll get rid of it. Now, you would think that that's actually pretty rare that Amazon would do that, and I'd agree, considering the fact of what Amazon allows to get sold through the Kindle store, considering some really like crazy shit. I mean, I don't just mean erotic or like sexual shit, there's those like dinosaur porn books, right? That those are just nuts. I mean, to each their own, but taken by the Velociraptor or taken by the T-Rex or something. I mean, ooh, I don't know, but they don't put a stop to that. They allow for that, and I think there's a lot of other books on there that have very, very questionable content, including from like some erotic authors, some of which I've been following for honestly decades, or not decades, but almost a decade. Like Krispy Kreme, that's KRISPKREME. If you didn't know, I read that, or I have read that. Just have a little sip there of seltzer. So, the fact that they allow for that, and some of the conspiracy books and like the shit that's in those books, I mean, no library would ever be caught dead having those books. Not that I want to censor books by any stretch of the imagination. I don't. I'm just saying that it's amazing what Amazon allows to get sold on the Kindle store. So, but that said, I mean, in the past, we know, there was the issue with George Orwell's, Animal Farm, and also 1984, of all ironies, that those books were literally ripped away from people's Kindle devices and taken out of their libraries entirely because of a copyright issue. And this was just a couple, 3-4 years ago, I guess. So that happens. Sometimes there's other situations where this happens too, that there aren't really great solutions. In fact, for instance, in the video game business, though GOG kind of does this right, there was the game Dirt, which is a really popular and actually really great racing game. But it was taken out of the catalogs of both Steam and GOG, GOG.com. GOG, of course, stands for Good Old Games, even though they sell a lot more than Good Old Games now. But, they were just taken out, from the catalog. Now, if you already bought them, you could keep them and you could keep using them. But one of the problems with Steam is that say you ever lose your Steam account somehow, which, boy, hope that never happens. But if it did, say you ever lost it, well, you'd run into a little bit of trouble because you're never going to be able to buy that game again, and you can't get your hands on it. So this is the problem with DRM and lots of these other things. Now, granted, with GOG, they have the solution right to where they get rid of the DRM in all of their games, so that once you buy it, you can download it, and install it and reuse it, and as long as you keep the files, I mean, you could use it for all time, and it doesn't really matter as long as it's compatible with the computer you're using or the OS you're using. That's kind of a case in point of the importance, say, of having DRM, because a game like Dirt, whatever, when it first came out, could probably cost $50 or something, and why should $50 just go down the drain because it gets taken away from a catalog, or you happen to lose your account or something? I mean, these are very legitimate and real concerns over the nature of digital property or digital goods, right? So I think getting rid of the DRM is hugely important, because if you lay down the money for it, well, I mean, and even if, understand this too, it's not just because some people, all right, real quick. So if you lay down the money for it, digital or whatever, really, I think you should be able to keep your hands on it, okay? And do whatever you want with it. I mean, this is the classic argument as far as file sharing goes, right? Somebody bought the CD and so they made a fucking copy of it. You can't take any legal action. How dare you take legal action against that? Let that person do whatever the fuck they want with it. But anyway, on the flip side of that kind of, that argument is that, well, like say some of the Kindle books you can actually get for free. Like say the Animal Farm in 1984. I think both of those were part of kind of the free Kindle library at the time. But you still paid for it after a fashion because, you paid for the Kindle device, right? And that's one of the literal selling points. It's part of the marketing material for a Kindle device, for an e-reader, is that you have access to this free library of however many millions of books. So, there's still money going down. It's still not okay that they ripped it from you. And, well, those arguments, again, they end up, getting circular and go back and forth. But all right, so how do you strip DRM from say a Kindle book? Why don't we just break into that? I think we've already described the importance of it. It's about you retaining ownership, and that's okay. All right, like that's a thing that you, in my opinion, every human's kind of welcome to do. And how you go about this now, and I'm also going to describe a little ugly trick that you can pull off if you want, or a dirty trick. How you go about this is. And I put a link in the show notes. It's in the appendix of the show notes for this is Sovereign Tech Subscriber episode 46, and I think it's Q&A episode 25. So in the appendix of that, there is a link on how exactly to set all this up, but I will describe it to you exactly how this goes down. Now, unfortunately, I'm really the website kind of describes how to do it on Mac and Linux. Admittedly, I've yet to be able to get it to work exactly how they have it listed on this website with a Linux machine. So, but if you're using a Windows machine, I do this all the time. Like, and it's very easy, and I've done it for years. So what you need to do, and in fact, with Linux, you have the other option, or you have the other problem is that there isn't a Kindle client where you can download the files on Linux anyway. So you're going to end up using an emulator in the first place just to be able to, another drink here, just to be able to get access to the files that you need. All right. So first things first, on your PC, Mac or PC, download the Kindle Reader. Okay, the Kindle Reader software. Don't download, if you're using Windows, don't download like the Universal app. You need to get the actual full-on, Kindle library app or, piece of software downloaded. Okay, so grab that from Amazon, and the link that I put in the show notes gives you links where to get all this stuff. And when you do that, okay, and again, we're talking largely for Windows here. And if you need to set up a VM to do this, I think it's worth your time to do it if that's what it takes to make it work for you. And Windows 10 works great with VMs anyway. So, okay. So you want it, you get that, and then with Windows, what it'll do is in your Documents folder, what used to be My Documents, now it's just Documents. In the Documents folder, it's going to create a My Kindle or My Kindle Content folder, and inside of that, now none of this is hidden. I'm surprised some people I know have said, well, like these files, I can't find them, they're hidden or something like this. They're really not. And you can find them in My Documents. And what I actually do is, when I find that folder, I create a shortcut. I do right click and create shortcut and all that. And I create a shortcut to it and I put it right on my desktop because I use this so often, to strip DRM. And when you do that, okay, so you've got that folder, you found that folder. Now you can log in with your Amazon account, open up the Kindle PC, the Kindle for PC, software, and then download whatever book you want. And generally, I recommend downloading one book at a time. That way, you know exactly which one you're dealing with. Okay, so the book you want to strip, get that down, strip of DRM, get that downloaded. Now, when you do that, you're going to open up that My Kindle Content folder that I just described that's in the Documents folder. Open that up, and you're going to see something. It's going to have, depending on who you are, it's going to have like a weird a kind of file name. And it'll be like B01B3NC078, and then it'll say dot, the extension will be .azw3 or azw4, something like that, right? And so that file, the azw3 file, you're going to want to copy that, right-click, copy, or Control-C, put it on your desktop, okay? And that is the book file, but it still has its DRM, all right? Now, the next thing you're going to need, and this is one of the most beautiful pieces of software ever devised, you're going to want Calibre. Maybe it's pronounced Calibre. I call it Calibre because the R is before the E. It's not ER at the end of Calibre, but it's Calibre. Again, in the link in the show notes for this episode, you can find the links for this as well. And they have a 64-bit version of it. I didn't see like a drastic difference in use between the two, but whatever. So download a copy of Calibre. Now understand, Calibre, it's ebook management software, okay? And it's designed to like work with whatever e-reader you happen to have, even if it's your phone. And it's meant to do kind of custom library management. You don't really have to use it for all of that. I generally only use Calibre for stripping DRM. Not just stripping DRM. I don't actually use Calibre for stripping DRM. I use it to convert the AZ3 or AZW3 or the Mobi file, which are the two file types that a Kindle reader readily recognizes. And I like to convert them to EPUB, which is an open source, format, which, EPUB is really just a fancy name for a zip file. If you didn't know that, most people, I guess, don't. But an EPUB is really, at the end of the day, it's just a zip file with, some fancy metadata in it. So anyway, get Calibre, install that, get that installed. Now, I will tell you, Calibre it's a great piece of software. It is probably, and I don't know why exactly this is, it is the most updated piece of software, certainly, that I've ever used on a PC. Every time I open it, and I probably open it once a week or so, if not more, it seems like every time I open it, there's another fucking update for it. So you'll be updating like nonstop all the time. And I recommend go ahead and update. I'm not exactly sure what they add. Sometimes there's big jumps in features. Like recently, there was a big jump in feature set in an overall design. But yeah, just a great piece of software to get to know and love. And there's an excellent quick start guide that you can start reading right when you open it up. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We won't go any further with that. Okay, so you've got that installed. That'll be for the conversion. That's all we're going to talk about as far as stripping DRM with that. Now you've got that file on your desktop, right? That funny AZW3 file from Kindle of the book that you want to strip of DRM. Now here's where things get a little confusing. Okay, you want to, and again, the link is in the show notes for this. You're going to get a package of software. It'll come as a zip file, and it's called DDRM. DEDRM. You're going to download this, and there's not really an updated version. I don't remember when the last one exactly came out. It might even be like a couple years old, but it doesn't matter. It still works. this is going to be a zip file. You'll download it. You open up the zip file. Inside of there, and here's some unique stuff I'm gonna tell you that may not necessarily be in the instructions. Okay, you're going to find a folder that says DDRM app. Okay, and this, when you download this, it's going to have the entire DDRM library. This is the actual, effectively, software that is going to strip the DRM. All right, now when you get into the DDRM app folder, there's going to be, it's going to be DDRM drop target.bat. Okay, it's a batch file. What I do is I put this whole folder into a separate folder on my C drive, where I put a lot of stuff that doesn't really install, where I put a lot of different software that doesn't actually install. It just, it just works. It's effectively portable. It just works, wherever you put it. And then I also, I create a desktop shortcut of the DDRM drop target batch file, the .bat there. And that's on my desktop now. Now, the other thing you have to install is that this DDRM software doesn't work without, you need to use, you need to have Python installed. Okay, and the best version is just grab Python version 2.7.11. There's like a newer version of Python above that. You don't need that. Just grab the basic installer for Python 2.7.11. Okay, and get that installed, and then this batch file will work for you. This DDRM will work for you entirely. So you don't have to run to the instructions that are in the show notes are going to show you kind of a slightly separate way on how to do this, to where you can actually integrate. You'll still have to install Python, by the way, for this to work. But you can integrate DDRM as an add-on into Calibre itself, and then it can all be done in one process. I have had challenges getting that to work, especially on Windows and on other, and including like on other systems. So, this is why I like to do it where I just run the batch file kind of on its own as a separate process. But if you can get it to work on Calibre, rock and roll. I have, like I said, I've had a challenge. I must be doing something wrong somewhere, but I'm not exactly figuring out, where it is, which I do a lot of custom stuff with my Windows install. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's something to do with me more than anything. Okay. So now with Python installed, the DDRM downloaded, okay, and I have the batch file, I have the shortcut for the batch file on my desktop. What you can do is you can take that .azw3 file, you can take that actual book file that you copied out of the my Kindle content folder, and you can drag that onto the batch file. Just you could drag it right onto the desktop shortcut that you created of DDRM, the batch file for that. And when you do that, it'll run a process. You'll see a process run. Python will fire up and everything. And then, zip, suddenly you'll have an exact copy of that book, but it'll be a .mobi file. If you're using some older versions of DDRM, it won't create the Mobi file, but it will just create, it'll just strip the DRM from the AZ3 or AZW3 file that you originally put on. And this is interesting. I've never really talked about how to go through this process in audio. Usually this is the realm of video or of a blog post. So let me know what you think of this, if you don't mind, like how well I described it, because I've never really done this before. So, okay. So now you either have the AZW3 file, which is stripped of its DRM, or you have like a separate .mobi file. Now, if you want to turn that into an EPUB, okay, to where you can use it, say, on more readers, like if you use Google Play Books, or if you use like iBooks, I think runs off of EPUB, or if you're just using something like Sumatra, like a PDF reader or something. EPUBs are far more compatible, file type than .mobis, and even though they're really not that different. But anyway, now you could drag it into Calibre, and you can right click in Calibre and say convert individual file, and then you can choose to convert it into an EPUB, or you could just keep the Mobi file if that's what you ended up with, and that's still minus the DRM, and you can and you can use it anywhere. or anywhere that reads a .mobi file, like even like Sumatra PDF, which is probably the best e-reader software of any kind, e-reader, PDF reader, and even it's a really good comic book reader now too. Available on Windows, just bar none. It's top notch. So now, if you want to test to see if the DRM's actually gone, well, that's where the conversion process comes in handy with Calibre. When you try to convert, say, the AZW3 or the .mobi file, it's .mobi. When you try to convert that in Calibre and it won't convert, it'll tell you if the DRM's still there. If it will convert, the DRM's gone. So that's how you do that. That's the short and sweet of it. Now, also, understand that because the Kindle store also sells comic books, this is also a great way to get your hands on comic books. Outside of, say, like torrenting comics, which I don't blame people for torrenting comics because it's very hard to get a DRM-free version of a lot of various comic books. It just really fucking is, and I think that that's wrong. Like, I don't, yeah, companies can sell it how they want it, but it just kind of sucks, right? That you could, one day lose it. And so, like, I don't want to spend the money, it's a market signal that I want to send to them. And that's the thing with torrenting too. Always understand that torrenting, file sharing, a lot of the stuff, that's a real market signal. That is, you telling whatever company, whatever organization, whoever you get your stuff from, in many ways, that's you telling them, look, this isn't convenient enough for me, or this is shit, I don't want to pay for it, or, not that again, it's shit. It's not that, it's not like you're just like, oh, I don't want to pay for this, I'm an asshole, or something like that. I'm not saying you're an asshole if you don't pay for something. I'm just saying. Or again, the other reason is because the stuff that you torrent is DRM free right out of the gate. And that's very attractive. It's attractive to me. So a lot of legitimate reasons, to do that. And also, I think stripping DRM, the instant I buy a book, I strip the shit out of that DRM. Like I don't even waste time, and I do it one book at a time because, my library is ridiculous, but, that's the way you go about it. Now, here's a dirty trick that you can do. I'm going to lay this on you. I am not recommending that anybody do this. I'm just saying that this is something that works and that you can do. And this trick is, now I don't know how often you could get away with this. Okay. Like I could see, like you do this a few times and I think Amazon's going to get wise about it and they're probably going to cancel your account. But every once in a while, if one really wanted to, the entire process that I just described to you, what you can do is you could buy a book. Now you're going to have the money, okay? But you could buy a book on, a Kindle book. You could download it, just do the exact process I just described to you. Strip the DRM, do the whole thing. And then you could, convert the file to EPUB, whatever you want to do. And then you can, and a lot of people don't know you can do this, but then you can actually go to your Kindle, manage your Kindle library on Amazon's website. And you could, as long as you do it in a short enough time frame, you could return the Kindle book. You can actually return Kindle books. And they'll give you a refund. And usually the refund you get in like a day or two. It takes no time at all. So, if you wanted let's say you wanted some crazy, $50 Kindle book, which those exist. If you wanted that, you could buy it, download it, strip all the DRM, get your copy done, the whole shit. And then you could just go to the website. And I don't recommend opening the book whatsoever. I'm not exactly sure how it works on that end because I've never gone through that process myself. But you could do that, and then, then you could just go to Amazon and say, "Oh, refund me the money for this Kindle book." Like, I don't know if there's a certain page count that they look at to see, as far as when, okay, no, they've read too much of the book or something like that. I don't know how they judge whether or not a book is worthy of being returned exactly. So I'll explain to you a little bit of the process. How this happened for me. Okay, so I found out that there is a book, and like, I literally, I mean, this is in a good way. I was going to say I literally crap my pants. Maybe I should say I jizz in my pants because that's a little more acceptable, ironically. But I found out that there's a company out there that writes, and I don't know exactly how they get the kind of the copy, how they work out the copyright and kind of the IP around this, but they actually write either sequel or prequel or whatever in between. They write novels or novellas about like kind of classic science fiction franchises. In particular, they wrote a book about Buck Rogers. I had no idea, and I'm talking about Buck Rogers from 1980, right? Like with Gil Gerard and Aaron Gray, one of my favorite fucking TV shows ever. It might have been one of the first TV shows I ever reviewed on Sovereign Tech Prime because years ago, because I love this show. It's so much fun. Like I stylistically with any kind of fiction writing I do, like I in many ways copy so much, not the content of Buck Rogers, but the style, where like it's kind of tongue in cheek, but also very sexy and over the top, like I love that show. Ooh. So anyway, I find out that there's a book about fucking Buck Rogers. I'm fucking ecstatic. Like I haven't been that excited since, Richard Hatch came out with his Battlestar Galactica books back in the 90s. Warhawk and Armageddon and all those books. Paradis, right? Was that? Yeah. Anyway. So I'm like, all right, I'll get it. All right, it's on Kindle. Awesome, great. I don't have to, I don't have to purchase it and then get it sent off to some scanning company to have a digital copy of it. Awesome, great. All right, and so I get it, and then the weird thing is that I do the whole strip DRM thing, and the format of the book, like when you go to read the page, is very weird, and you can't even really read it. Like it's almost like what they did was they literally scanned the book and somehow turned that into an EPUB, because that was a weird thing too, is that, or, turned it into an ebook, I should say, is because like the size of that ebook, because I think it's just a novella, it's not, it doesn't appear to be a very long book at all. And it's, for those looking for it, it's Buck Rogers, Lo, the Rings of Saturn, Lo, the Rings of Saturn. Maybe they're supposed to say Io, but I think they spelled it Lo. Whatever. It got some pretty good reviews. And I'm super excited for it. It's a book that takes place between season 1 and season 2 of Buck Rogers, so I'm totally on board. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it just looked really bad. It was a totally unreadable ebook. Like I couldn't read it no matter what I threw at it. And in fact, it wouldn't even. This is the weird part: is that when I went to open the book, and this speaks interestingly to kind of our whole conversation here. When I went to open the book in the Kindle software itself, like in Kindle for PC, it would crash the software. Then I would go, no, it's not malware or anything. Don't worry about that. But then, I was like, okay, well, let's try the Kindle Cloud Reader because, Chrome, and various browsers have an extension called the Kindle Cloud Reader. So I tried it in that and it would say it couldn't open it. And when I converted the EPUB, now I could open it in Sumatra PDF Reader. But then when I would try to upload it to like say Google Play Books wouldn't accept it. I could look at it in Sumatra, but that's the only place it would work. The damnedest thing. I mean, it's just super, super weird. I don't know what the fuck happened there. I don't know what the deal is with that. But there it is. And so I was like, wow, I can't deal with this. And so, so what I did is that I returned, I asked for a refund and then I just bought a used copy of the paperback. Which the paperback's fine. But yeah, weird ass shit. So, but that's how I know that, that this is kind of all possible. Like I'm speaking from a degree of experience. Okay. That's good. I think that covers the whole like stripping, ebooks and DRM and all that. I think that covers that subject pretty well. Now I've got another question. This was actually sent through Patreon, which is great. I love getting questions through the Patreon Messenger. Just makes it so convenient for me because it's this nice one spot where I can grab everything. But the question was, well, here, I'll read it. And this is from a patron. Thank you. Hey, Brian, I love Sovereign Tech and Sex and Science Hour. I find your point of view to be intriguing and unique. Only tech podcasts I listen to. I am so honored by that. Thank you. That's part of the reason I want to read this whole thing. I really appreciate, especially that comment. And I get that a lot, that like my show is really the only tech podcast that people listen to. And that, one day I'll figure out exactly what is the mixture that allows for that to be, or, that why that is exactly. But I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm just saying, like, I really want to know, I know things that separate Sovereign Tech from other tech shows, but it's interesting that I hear that so much. So thank you so much. I appreciate that feedback. Also miss hearing you. I'll read this bit here. Also miss hearing you on Free Talk Live. If you two, that being me and Stephanie, would be willing to guest host one night again, I bet you easily could get your fans to pay you for your time through crowdfunding. I would throw into that pot. Thank you so much. That is a real honor. I have, that's something else too. So for those that don't know, for the, maybe new listeners to Sovereign Tech and whichever else, for a couple of years, I guess this would be 2012 to 2014, maybe parts of 2015. For about 2 years, I was a co-host on on Free Talk Live, on Sunday nights in particular. And in fact, I made it enough to where, because Free Talk Live gets a lot of co-hosts. Some are certainly better than others. There's great hosts on there. You have Daryl Perry, who does an excellent, he's really picked up the ball and ran with it, with that show. And he does a lot of other great work too. And then there's kind of the standbys. You have Ian Freeman, and of course, Mark Edge and some others. But yeah, it's had a bit of a revolving door, other than the names I mentioned. It's had somewhat of a revolving door of varying degree of quality of guest, of co-hosts. So because of that quality, not everybody gets to do what's called first chair, meaning that you are literally running the entire show. You're doing the technical, you're taking the calls, you're handling volumes, you're doing all this different stuff. Not saying that it's like excruciating work or anything, but just saying that not everybody gets to do that. I had the great pleasure of becoming part of this like revolving thing on Sundays, where one Sunday Mark would be first chair, another Sunday Stephanie would be first chair, and then another Sunday I would be first chair. And I was really honored by that, to run really a radio show that literally reaches out to millions of people every month. That was really great. And I had a great time on Free Talk Live. Times where I didn't have so much of a great time. There's some callers that are positively ridiculous on there. But whatever, anyway, I still appreciate Free Talk Live for what it is. No question about it. I've worked for Free Talk Live for some time. Actually, Daryl Perry has asked Stephanie and I to appear again at times when he's running things, and we've gone back, here and there. I've been asked to, like, Ian has actually messaged me and said, "Hey, could you come on, please, and speak about this when it's a certain subject." And that's, that's a real honor too, for people to want to reach out to you and say, "Okay, I want my listeners to have somebody with some expertise, talking on things," and that's really great. So yeah, not opposed. I don't think Stephanie and I are, and I wouldn't dare speak for her because we're individuals. I don't think we're opposed to, appearing at certain points again. Like I guess it was a year ago when we were there was the Bitcoin conference that we went to in Las Vegas in November. We co-hosted again on that, so we come back here and there, and I don't think we're opposed to doing that. I don't know that we'd necessarily do anything regular, but I really appreciate what the emailer said, that, they throw in for, kind of a fund, a Patreon of sorts, perhaps, to get Brian and Stephanie back on Free Talk Live. So I'm really, like I say, I'm just so honored by that. A lot of people, and I've had people tell me that Sunday night, and I'm not taking anything away from the rest of the show, but Sunday nights were kind of their last vestige of Free Talk Live. Like, that's the last thing that they listened to. And when we left, they stopped. And that's okay. That's not a good or bad, kind of either way. I'm just saying that, there's people that feel that way. I mean, and so there's times too where like when Mark Edge wasn't around and it was funny, Stephanie and I would be first chair and I would call it the anarchist edition. And people got really excited when we were doing it. And they know, and we'd get a different kind of clientele. We'd get a different set of callers and all that. And some of what I think, honestly, not to pat myself on the back, I think some of those anarchist edition episodes of Free Talk Live were some of the best of the show. Not because of Stephanie and I, but because the callers were bringing up such phenomenal subjects. It wasn't your run-of-the-mill kind of either minarchist or, kind of like constitutionalist. Yeah, we got to get back to the Constitution. It wasn't that shit. Or if it was, they got reamed. Like you're stepping into the, ring with the tag team champs. I mean, what are you going to do? And that was another thing too. In fact, I know a great guy who actually, I'm pretty sure he still listens to Sovereign Tech. But I remember he was saying in the Facebook group for Free Talk Live, he said he was messaging, kind of the other hosts for Free Talk Live. This was, when we were still on it. And he said, he says, I think Brian and Stephanie are they're too smart for the show. And I'm not exactly sure what he meant by that. But I mean, he meant it to be very congratulatory. And I know that this person's still a fan of my work and I appreciate that. But I just, I think the sense is that like, honestly, we decimate the callers. They'd call in with their shit and it'd be kind of over. And well, I could tell so many stories about that. You can ask me if you want me to tell you some Free Talk Live stories. I'm happy to tell them to you because there's so many to tell. Great nights and just, some very interesting callers and all that. There's so much to go on about that. But you didn't message me. You didn't email me about, to talk about Free Talk Live. But I'm honored. We might do guest appearances again. If so, okay. I mean, I'm open to that, but I don't imagine it ever be kind of a regular thing because it's a pretty serious drive. For us to go to, because Free Talk Live is based out of Keene and we are not. I lived in Keene for like a year. It wasn't bad then, but it is quite a drive, especially like in the winter and all that. But again, not that we're opposed to it if we were asked necessarily. Okay. Let's read on a little bit here. Okay, here's the next part of the question. Still hoping to see a MUD one day. A MUD is a kind of a text-based game. I'll just put it right here. I am working on that. In fact, other people have asked me, because Hyperchronius 2 is supposed to come out in 2016. I am working with a different engine for it I really want this game to be to the next level. And certainly not, and I don't want it to be like a Final Fantasy kind of length of game, but I want it to have a good amount of length. I want it to have, a lot of options to it. So that's on its way. I don't want to put down a hard date on it, but it is something I'm working on. And also the MUD is another thing that I'm working on because those kind of games excite me, especially if I can, if I could like plug it right into a website and people could just go there and rock it right off of the website. I mean, I'd make it available offline too. That's why my game company is called Zomia Offline Games, but there you go. Anyway, so I got you covered, baby. Let's read on here. I have a couple of questions for you. I am looking for a cloud storage platform, and I would love your recommendation. Mostly, I want to upload videos and pictures of my dogs from my phone, then share the videos with other people in a way they can easily access. I think you mentioned on your podcast a service you would recommend, but I cannot remember what. I would also like to find an easy-to-use PGP email provider. Ease of use on desktop and Android is paramount. Hope you have a happy new year. So, and I asked this person a couple other questions. What operating systems are they using? Obviously, they're using Android. Are they using Windows 10? Or are they using what is their desktop? Because that changes the answer. So, I'm going to break down into this. Now, the photo storage and video storage, I really don't think, as far as something that falls under what I used to call, or I still call it that. I just don't talk about it as often, I guess. But what I call DApps, which DApps is an acronym, DAPS, not like DApps, like decentralized applications, but just DAPS, which is Decentralization, anonymity, privacy, and security. Okay, these are the things I look for in software. Unfortunately, not a lot of other people do. So, so it's not a subject that seems to come up too often. But anyway, nothing wrong with what this emailer is asking. I'm not saying that. I'm speaking more in an abstract. So now I don't think there's not really any great privacy-oriented and maybe like encrypted-oriented version of this that also, of cloud storage that also allows for the easy sharing, especially of video, because you're going to be, I asked further questions, and effectively these would be like 5-minute videos at most. Maybe they'd end up being, something more. If you get into a lot of videos and a lot of pictures, especially if like they're full quality pictures or whatever else, you're going to start taking up space pretty fast. So in my opinion, you're left with two options, okay? Based upon, and I asked what operating system, and it was Windows 7, which good on you. But I'll expand a little bit upon this more, as far as like what other options are out there and what other people are using. So again, under the auspices of this is for video and photo storage. Okay, my best recommendation with using Windows 7 and Android, So, all right, well, let me back up. Okay, if it was Windows 10 and Android, the answer would be very simple. The answer would be I would use OneDrive. Like just hands down, and like I'd even like lay out and pay for I'd pay for Office 365. It's $10 a month, but you get Office, you get a good amount of storage, which that storage limit will probably end up going back up in the future. I have a problem with OneDrive in that there was that OneDrive gate, which I've talked about on Sovereign Tech, where they were offering unlimited storage on everything, and then they backpedaled to even, like at first they were offering like 5 terabytes, then they went to unlimited, and then they backpedaled and went all the way back down to 1 terabyte. So, I recommend OneDrive with a touch of hesitancy. But the reason if it was Windows 10 and Android, the reason I would recommend that is because with Windows 10, you're more or less, you're going to have a Microsoft account that you're going to log into, especially if you use things like Skype and all this. So if you already have a Microsoft account on your desktop where, you get shit done and all this, and you're probably going to want to do a lot of the sharing from that, whatever, you might as well use OneDrive. That way you're not making a separate account for, to do all the other things that you do. And with Android, the OneDrive app on Android is phenomenal. It's the best cloud storage app. I mean, just bar none. It's better than Google Drive, in my opinion, by a long shot. So OneDrive is a really good option. Windows 7, that's still pretty viable because you probably still already have a Microsoft account. But understand that using OneDrive as this option, OneDrive's really, personally, I think it's really only viable if you want to go with Office 365 and you want to pay the $10 a month. Otherwise, it's not necessarily worth it. Okay, if you want to kind of take advantage of the rest. Google is, for a lot of people, that's a very clear option, and for a very simple reason. One is that with Android, you likely already have a Google account of some kind. So you're not going to have to make another account. The Google, like Google Photos and a lot of this other stuff that's available, on desktop, all works very well with Windows, including Windows 7. Like Google Photos, which allows you to upload videos and unlimited free storage of photos. I think it's standard quality photos that you get to upload for free, which is very attractive because, again, it's free. Even with OneDrive, you are going to run out of space eventually. Not true with with Google Photos. So Google Photos is really the good option because it's free, and also Google Photos or Google Drive / Google Photos is great because the shareability is easy. The shareability is very easy on OneDrive as well. I mean, super, super easy how you can share things, and both of them have great web interfaces. The nice thing about Google Photos is that I think it plays a little bit nicer, with when you're going really cross-platform. Like if you had a Linux desktop and all this, you might be in a little bit of better shape, but not by much. The concern that I have with Google Photos, with using Google Photos specifically with Windows, is that the software that you can install for Google Photos on your desktop, and I don't think you have to use the software. You can just use the web portal. You can just use the web page. But if you install the software, like, it scans your entire fucking computer and it grabs every video, every photo. Like, it's really bad how it goes about that. And even if you tell it not to, it still kind of does it. Like, that's been really problematic. So I really don't like recommending Google Photos at all. But it might be the more attractive between, say, OneDrive, because, like I said, OneDrive is really only worth it, in my opinion, if you go with if you go with an Office 365 subscription. Which, understand, the Office 365 subscription is worth your money. I mean, like, the $10 a month that you spend, you get to share it with 5 other people, or you get to share your account with 5 other people. Say, like, you get to share it with your family if you have a family. Like, you can share it with your friends. You can give them a copy of Office effectively, and they get all the same storage that you do. You don't share, actual, like, Office, or, you don't share a cloud drive or anything. You can give your kind of account access effectively. You can gift copies of Office 365 to 5 people. Maybe that's the best way to describe it, which is really cool. So again, just tons and tons of value for that $10 a month. But anyway, now the third option that I'm going to describe, okay, is this. This might be interesting to some, and that is if you are already an Amazon Prime subscriber, like if you already get Amazon Prime, you get what's called Amazon Photos, which is unlimited photo storage, and I think it's also video storage. And this is like super attractive, and you can share, you can create. I mean, they keep getting it better. A couple of years ago, when this first came out, Amazon Photos was really basic, like too fucking basic. There weren't a lot of features. It was kind of an ugly situation. So, but that's something to consider, especially since it would be unlimited. The other thing that Amazon also offers, and now they're really the only company that does it, is they have Amazon Cloud Drive, which Amazon Cloud Drive, it's like $60 a year. I don't think you get it for free if you're an Amazon Prime member. But for $60 a year, you can upload like unlimited whatever, not just videos. You can upload unlimited everything into the cloud. I mean, and so far they've stuck to it over the years. Unlike where Microsoft backpedaled on that, Amazon has stuck with it, where they said, yep, no, it's totally unlimited. You go ahead, you upload whatever the fuck you want. And they have desktop clients, that do the job too. So those are things to consider. Yeah, I mean, personally, especially if you're sticking with Windows, and the person said that they're a gamer and that's why they use Windows. And I'm with you. I have a Windows machine solely for the purpose of gaming. That's why I use it, is, because it is the gaming platform. Just, that's the end of the story. You don't have to, and like I always tell people, and I'm not saying the emailer doesn't know this. I'm just saying that, for new listeners and for everybody else, I say this all the time. Look, if you don't like Windows, fine, I understand that. But if you're a gamer, it's sort of the thing, and the easiest thing to do is just have a simple Windows PC that's all it does. You don't log into Chrome on it. You don't log into anything on it. You don't install any other software. It's just your gaming machine. None of your privacy concerns. I mean, you don't have to have any privacy concerns. You don't have to have any of that shit. All it is just a glorified console, And so, I mean, yeah, when you use Windows, I mean, especially if you can only afford one computer, I mean, it makes sense. And you're a gamer, rock on. That's totally legitimate, in my opinion. So anyway, yeah. In fact, the emailer brought up, talked about why he didn't go to Windows 10, and he hated kind of the malicious way that they're trying to force people to upgrade. Microsoft did admit. In fact, another patron sent the story to me. I haven't covered it yet on either a Sovereign Tech Prime show or on this show. But Microsoft has finally come out and said, yeah, we fucked up. Like, that was not okay how we were handling that whole upgrade cycle. Of course, it's too little too late for them to apologize now. But anyway, good deal on you staying on Windows 7. I think that's fantastic. So I will list off one other little option, and this is kind of a hybrid solution, okay, to where you could, like with the videos in particular, if you wanted to do this, With the videos, you could upload them to YouTube, all these 5-minute videos, and you can upload forever on YouTube. And then you could just not set them to public. And then you could share the private link to people if you wanted to share those videos. That's another thing. I mean, lots of people actually have massive home video collections, like some of that they've converted from VHS or something. They have massive home video collections that they have uploaded to YouTube, and they just don't set them to public. And I mean, again, there's a part of me that doesn't like using those free services because just in my own mind, when, like some people, some very prominent individuals in certain spheres of influence of mine have had their YouTube channel shut down, and people start freaking out saying, how dare you take down my YouTube channel? Blah, how dare you do this? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, you didn't pay shit for it. Or you didn't pay money anyway. I mean, we always pay in data, but you didn't pay money for it. So, shut up. I mean, yeah, it sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you, but you have no moral recourse. You have no ethical recourse against YouTube for them deleting your channel, and deleting all your videos. So that, as to where I think with Microsoft, and they have done this where they've offered refunds, many a time based upon things, or at least anyway, they tried. They have tried. I don't think it's enough. I don't necessarily think that they did it in the best way, but to some degree there is some restoration. There is some attempts at restoration by Microsoft when they've done some shitty shit. So, paying for Office 365, I don't know. I feel a little bit better in my head because, I feel like I could kind of take a case to them if something ever happened to my stuff that was, say, stored in the cloud. So again, I'm not talking about dApps. We're not talking about necessarily private solutions, privacy-oriented solutions, or open source solutions or anything like that, because I don't think there's really good ones for the use case that you're describing, that the emailer is describing. So, but those are the options, and choose which one you want to run with. Any of those will really do it. I don't think Amazon's interface just doesn't hold up to what OneDrive, from Microsoft and what Google Photos offers at all. So now, if you're an Apple user, if you are in the Apple ecosystem all the way, in my opinion, two options. I would either, if you're an Office 365 subscriber, use OneDrive. That's fine, because actually OneDrive does a great job of working with Apple products. But I would, just use iPhoto, or whatever. Use iCloud, right? Just go with that. I mean, not to say that it's the best service out there, but this is in my opinion, one of the huge advantages of being in the Apple ecosystem is that Apple provides everything, and you don't have to make accounts with anybody else. You don't have to make a Google account unless you're, on YouTube or something. You don't have to make a Microsoft account for anything. Like, you get to avoid so many tech giants, and you get everything from just the one company, because, having multiple accounts, that's a security risk. In my opinion, the more accounts you have, the more potential exploits you have, of people cracking into this and using it maybe to get into other accounts or to get into, some part of your life that you don't want anybody in, obviously. So yeah, have as few accounts as possible. I think that's such a great security, recommendation to run with. So there you go. There's my picks on that. All right, now we're over an hour, and I didn't think that this episode could possibly go over an hour, but it did. So the other question I was asked was, and I won't read the whole thing here, but effectively, just asking like, what movies am I excited about, coming out this year? And I was looking at this the other day when I got asked, and I was in fucking shock. I couldn't write the whole list of movies that I'm like, I want to go to theaters to see that. Like, I mean, I was ecstatic about a lot of these movies coming out. In fact, one's coming out in a couple days, not without concern. But the new Underworld, was it Blood War? That comes out on January 6th. So just a couple days from now. I love the Underworld series. I mean, it's not great. The Underworld series isn't, great, but I mean, it doesn't deserve to be kind of in the pantheon with, I don't know, like, Star Wars, Star Trek, or, any of the big stuff like that. Like, it doesn't deserve that kind of ranking, but it's a very, very fun, very sexy, and it has such a unique style. It's just, it's a fun franchise. It's not The Matrix. It doesn't belong in that caliber, but it's still one of my top franchises. I really enjoy it. Kate Beckinsale's, she's awesome. So that's coming out, and there is the concern, and in fact, this is kind of the point I was going to hold off on that I mentioned very early in the show. There is a concern that they have, they're not doing, as far as I know, they're not even really doing any early screenings of it, and they're not allowing for early reviews to come out. Now, this is a situation that happened with Independence Day Resurgence, a movie I actually liked. And I know I'm going to hear about that, but when these companies, okay, or when studios don't allow for either early reviews to come out or even early showings, that's usually a giant red flag saying this movie sucks. Now there's the chance, it being Underworld, that it's really not going to suck, right? Like that it's just, well, as long as you watch it under, with your Underworld lenses on, it's actually pretty great. Just like I talk about Jurassic Park, right? Now there is a great franchise. Jurassic Park, I love Jurassic Park 3. Most people don't like it. Why did I like it? Because I just wanted to see the fucking dinosaurs. And that movie, pound for pound, has more dinosaurs probably than any other one of them. And so good, fucking, that was awesome. Seeing the velociraptors do their hunting and all that shit, that's great. So it depends on, I guess in many ways it depends on your point of view. So there's the point of view that, in the popular aspect, Underworld Blood War might be schlock. But within the realm of Underworld, it could be a great movie. If you're a fan of Underworld overall, this could be fantastic. So, I'm not sure if I'm going to go to theaters to see this one, but whatever. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. I'm excited for it anyway. And I do know, I think it came out overseas like a month ago. So I don't know if anybody's tried looking for reviews from overseas, but whatever. It's out there. And that's unique too, that a movie like this, which is clearly a very Americanized, very American-based like kind of audience and sort of presentation, I think, that it would, chip off overseas first. I mean, maybe you got to understand this too. And this is the thing, because what I'm going to describe real quick, like January is really fucking loaded. At least, there's like almost a movie a week for me, I'm excited about and looks great. Part of the reason that could have happened is because December has become, and seemingly more so it's going to become, December has become Star Wars month. I mean, just anybody, you're crazy if you want to like release in December now, the way things are going. And in fact, it seems like this is a pattern because the Han Solo movie, which is supposed to come out in 2018, of course we have 2017 this year, we have Episode 8 coming out, but in 2018, the Han Solo movie is supposed to be coming out. And that was supposed to come out in May, but they pushed it back to December. And so it looks like they might just want to be trying to dominate Christmas, and they can do it. And they'll do, just insane fucking numbers. Rogue One's doing great numbers, and obviously The Force Awakens, did massive numbers. Episode 8 is probably going to be a $2 billion movie. Box office, it's just going to be, wild. So I think a lot of movies this year particularly all got pushed back when it's like, shit, Rogue One. Because Rogue One was supposed to come out earlier in the year too, and it didn't happen. They ended up pushing that back to December for, the whole bunch of reasons behind that. In fact, I'll let you know now, just real quick on Rogue One. I'm not going to talk about Star Wars for long here. I'll say this. There was a story that maybe it was Entertainment Weekly, but I know IO9 published it, where the guy that played Orson Krennic in Rogue One, Ben Mendelsohn? Yeah, something like that. He pretty much confirmed everything I said. Remember a few episodes ago when I did my review of Rogue One on Sovereign Tech, and I told you how, look, I know there is a whole other version of this movie out there, at least one other version of this movie, and it's the one that we saw in the trailers. It's very different, and it might even be better. Ben Mendelsohn came out and said, "Oh yeah," he said, "There's like 4 scenes in particular that were totally, like, each time they filmed one of these scenes, they did like different takes on it, and each one had a very different tone that could have changed everything. And then he said there was like 20, 25 scenes in between that had completely different aspects to them and almost like different endings. And so, yeah, there's a whole other movie out there. Like, I was dead on, you know, and I wonder how much better, maybe it's not, maybe the version we ended up with is the best version. I don't know. But I'd love to be able to see it someday. Or even I'd be game for special editions of these movies down the line. I really would be. So anyway, enough about Rogue One. Okay, so we have Underworld's coming out. I mentioned that, and this is supposed to be the last one, so really excited about that one. I'm amazed that there's another one. I mean, I'm trying to remember how many there's been. 5, 6. I mean, it's incredible that there's another. Then, in January 20th, I think, is The Return of Xander. The new XXX movie. With, the classic XXX from 2001 with Vin Diesel. I love that movie. State of the Union wasn't terrible with Ice Cube. That was pretty good. I like Ice Cube fine. But yeah, this is going to be a sequel to that, and they said it's going to be a sequel. They're not writing off, the second XXX movie, which didn't have Vin Diesel at all. But really excited for this one. Very much looking forward to that. It's cheesy and over the top, but so what? That's what I want. That's fine. Make it like it's the year 2001 again. I don't give a shit. Do it. Excited for that one. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Then the week after that, we get the new Resident Evil movie. Fuck. We get the last Resident Evil movie. That was, I think they're calling it the final chapter. I love the Resident Evil series. Huge fan. I know they're not great movies. They're great for what they are. Okay, and I really, really enjoy them for their over the topness, and I love the character of of Alice. I mean, I love having that badass femme fatale. I think it was rare back when she first started making back when Mila Jovovich started making these movies, and it's amazing. She's still there and she still looks great too. Jeez. Really excited about the Resident Evil movie coming out. That's going to be awesome. And then after that, I mean, oh boy, I know there's got to be a million things in between, but you have the new, and here's a franchise that is way in my upper echelons, and I'm serious. Fast and the Furious. In fact, Stephanie and I right now, we are going through the Fast and the Furious movies. We're watching them in chronological order. Okay. These movies are so good. They just keep getting better too. They are so fucking great. And so, we have, Fate of the Furious? I think that's the name of it. This is the 8th one. Of course, technically it's the 10th. Most people don't know that Fast and the Furious, so for Too Fast, Too Furious, which is the second one, they actually made, and there's no dialogue really in the movie except for in the very beginning, but they made like a 6-minute like mini movie that had, oh shit, why am I forgetting his name? The guy that died. Anyway, the guy that played Brian O'Connor. I feel so bad that I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, the guy that played Brian O'Connor. I want to call him Ryan Seacrest. I know it's not Ryan Seacrest. But yeah. So that character, like, it follows what happened to him after he lets Dom go. Spoiler alert. After he lets Dom go at the end of the first Fast and the Furious movie. And there's like a 6-minute little film on that, and pretty much how he ends up in Miami. That's kind of a mini movie. And then you have Too Fast, Too Furious. Now, after Too Fast, Too Furious, they released in 2006. They released Tokyo Drift, which took place in Tokyo. It's totally different. Didn't have much of anything to do with like Vin Diesel's character or anything like that. And Vin Diesel wasn't in Too Fast, Too Furious anyway. That's when they had Tyrese, and the character of Brian O'Connor. So now the interesting thing, though, is that Tokyo Drift actually takes place after Fast and the Furious 6. Like, even though it's the third one released, chronologically it takes place way, way after. And when you watch the end of Fast and the Furious 6, when you see that scene during the end credits, that's actually kind of like the ending, effectively. That's sort of a mini sequel to what happens at the end of Tokyo Drift. So we're watching them in chronological order. And there's also, I forgot about it, there's also the Los Bandoleros movie that Vin Diesel made. It's like this 15-minute, maybe it's like 20 minutes. Anyway, it's a short film, but he directed it, and everybody's in it. You know, all the, or at least Vin Diesel's in it, and a lot of the characters that you remember from from the fourth one, Fast and Furious. I think that's what they call that one, is Fast and Furious, and then there's Fast 5 and yada yada. But there's that little movie called Los Bandoleros, which that takes place between Too Fast, Too Furious and Fast and the Furious 4, effectively. And so we're watching all of these, and it's so amazing what a great little franchise this is. I mean, Jesus, it's like they've really done something special, I think, with all of this. And now we're about to the point to where we're going to watch Tokyo Drift, and then we're going to watch Fast 7, and then of course in April Fast 8 comes out. So really excited about that coming out. Then there's what else we got coming out this year? Probably the most exciting movie for me is Wonder Woman. Speaking of which, I mean, Gal Gadot, kind of broke her chops on the Fast and Furious movies, and she did great in those. And so really excited to see her, to see Wonder Woman. I think that's going to be phenomenal. You have that movie coming out, and I'm sure I'm not thinking of all of them. And then of course there's Episode 8. I mean, holy shit! How could I not talk about the fact that Episode 8 is going to be coming out? And there's a ton more. So just it's a loaded year. A lot of great shit I know coming out in the summer this year that I'm looking forward to. 2017, I'm hoping, is going to be a hell of a year. I mean, I'm really down for all this. So that's enough of that. I don't know if I made the connection. Yeah, I was going to say, so earlier when I was talking about Blood Wars, real quick, I was saying how when somebody doesn't show something to you, usually that's a bad sign. Well, like my relation to that was with Theranos, how we were talking about Theranos earlier, and that with the new Underworld movie, it's like, well, they're not letting you see anything. That might mean that there's, bullshit ahead, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm looking forward to all of it, and of course I'll review all of these movies either on Sovereign Tech Prime, or maybe I'll review them right here. Certainly Episode 8, you are guaranteed that I will spend at least an entire hour of Sovereign Tech, of a Prime episode, reviewing that. Anytime Star Wars movie comes out, I am so on board with that. And holy shit, I'm sorry, one more time, one last thing. Did everybody go watch that trailer for the second half of Star Wars Rebels of Season 3? Holy shit! I'm just going to say this. There is a point where, where there's a guy sitting around a fire. That's all I'm going to say. He's sitting around a little fire pit. When I saw it, I knew who it was. I stopped breathing. Like, I literally went... And it held. Like, I was so jazzed, baby. Oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, this is going to be so good. And also, I mean, not a movie, but we've got the Star Trek Discovery comes out in May. Can't wait for that. Really excited for that. I mean, and, on TV end of things, there's awesome stuff happening. You've got the second season of The Expanse coming out in February. That's coming up really fast. I mean, just great stuff going on. So anyway, enough. That's it. That's it for your Q&A this week. I hope this is a very informative one for you. We didn't get into anything really philosophical, which that's nice. I mean, it's fine. I love talking to philosophy stuff too. Don't misunderstand me. It's just that's definitely been taking up a lot of the Q&As recently. So, but we'll save that for another time. Got a lot of tech stuff in this one and some fun stuff at the end. We got to geek out a little bit. So that's it. Of course, new Sex and Science Hour coming out Friday, and if everything goes right, I'll just let my patrons know. If everything works out right, I'm actually going to have the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. She will be on Sovereign Tech this week. Things might change, schedules, all that. But, it's always fun to have her on. So, there you go. Whew. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.